advocacy to stay. So here the idea is to find out practical tools for building advocacy roadmaps and to transform advocacy into a more structured um, roadmap that strengthens institutional impact and build long-term relationships. So we want to also welcome to this session our mentor, who is gonna be Iember Amah. She is an sorry, give me a second. I will try to introduce real quick Amma. She is an advocacy, but also, sorry, you can see my screen.
No, Brittany, we can't in this moment.
Sorry. Okay. So I was trying to introduce Amber. She is a governance and policy professional. She has been dedicated the past years to advancing legislative reforms, strengthening democratic institutions in Nigeria. She currently serves as a senior program officer at the Policy and Legal Advocacy Center, where she leads multi-stakeholder programs promoting legislative accountability, inclusion, and evidence-based reforms at national state level. So I will give you now the presentation control. Amma, welcome to this third session, and well, we're all yours.
Okay. I hope everyone can hear me. If you can just raise your hand up, you can just thumbs up. In the chat, you can also respond as well. Thank you everyone for being here today. I want to start by acknowledging the work that you do. It's very, very remarkable and it's very, very important. The session that I'll be dealing with, advocating to stay, is not about telling you what to do differently, but it's about giving you the tools, the language, and a community to help what you already know, what you're building to survive, and how to make it last. Now, before we dive in, just a few quick norms for this online session. Would really appreciate it if you can keep your cameras on. Your face matters in these conversations. I will also encourage you to use the chat actively. I'll be reading out your responses in the chat and also calling out your contributions. I believe that the conversations we're going to have here, would be the best moment of this online session. So please just feel free to speak up if you have questions. The chat box is there. And so we would proceed with today's session, advocating to stay. Before we begin the session, just in one word, what does advocacy mean to you in your organization? You can provide the response in the chat box and I'll be reading it. Trying to get the slide up. So in one word, wow. In one word, what does advocacy mean to your organization. Okay, so Sylvia says change. I can see collaborate. I can see transformation. I can see reforms. Okay, so I can see change. All right, I can see initiative. Roger is raising awareness. Open discussion. Louis says open discussions and transform. Bridging and transforming. Dialogue. Vanessa says dialogue. Justice. Someone says justice. Great.
Amah, would you rather to share your screen? I can stop.
Oh yeah, yeah. Maybe if you could handle the slides for me because it's a bit slow on my end. So
Okay,
that
okay.
would really help.
Sure.
Okay, the next slide, please. All right, thank you all for your responses. All the responses have been great, but before we build the solution, I think we will need to reframe the problem. Okay, so most of us, we have been trained to think of advocacy as a communications function, something that you do at the end of the real work. We say you have to deliberate, you reach an outcome, and then you do advocacy, you write press releases, you brief the politician, and it all stops there, hoping that something happens. But this model is trying to tell you that seeing advocacy as a means of communication is a broken model, and this module finds out of permanence. So, and as before we proceed, let me show you 4 numbers. Now, I want you to sit with these numbers for just a moment before we analyze them. On top that screen, it says the central challenge is not only to deliberate well, but to make deliberation irreversible. According to statistics, it says that 1 in 5 democratic innovations in Global South survive a single electoral cycle. 73% of participatory budgeting process are discontinued within 3 years. 68% of CSO-led forums produce no traceable policy change. 82% of those processes had no stakeholder power, marketing power. And it says that $2.1 billion is spent annually on citizens' engagement with limited sustainability framework. So why does this keep happening? So we're going to talk about 6 reasons why most deliberative processes disappear. These are just some of the reasons why the advocacy fades. Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
Promise I'm trying.
Okay, sorry. All right. Thank you very much, Penny. So these are the 6 most common reasons why advocacy fails. And I'm going to read each one, and I just want you to listen to the one that feels most familiar to you. Number 1 is burnout. It says that this happens when the system or your deliberative model depends on the heroism or the power or the suggestions of just one person rather than a structural design. The second reason is discouragement. So when your wins are invisible, whenever you've achieved something and your wins are invisible for too long, people stop believing what you have done or what you have worked on. And so that is why tracking and celebrating your milestone is more or less of a strategic necessity and not a luxury. The second talks about structural resistance. So institutions protect themselves. Power defends power. Now, this is a political reality. So your model needs to be able to account for it, to know that institutions do protect themselves. And so for you to be able to be part of that decision-making process, there are some things you need to go through. You have to convince them about the work that you do and let them buy into the model that you have. Secondly, government change. Sorry, the fourth point is government change. Now, when you have a single champion on advocacy, advocacy collapses when your champion leaves. For instance, if the person in government is only the person who champions your model or who champions your advocacy process, it leaves your model to survive on just one person. And this is not right. And this is just one official. It is not yet a model. And this is one of the most destructive force for advocacy in Global South. One election, one reshuffled ministry, one defunded program, and years of relationship that you have built overnight disappears. And then the other point is funding dependency. When your donor cycles end, campaigns end with them, unless your organization has built community ownership, you have built nothing that endures. So for instance, we could see what happened globally last year when USAID pulled out of the development space. I mean, it was chaotic in the development sector, as well as the civil society organizations, a lot of non-profit organizations, and a lot of civil society organizations are no longer able to push the model or push the causes that they have been advocating for because funds have stopped coming in. And then the last point, one of the reasons is the short attention span. So advocacy built on sand alone cannot last. There are new circles, there are new regimes that will come in, there are new systems that will come into place, there are new governments that will come into place. And so in this situation where nobody is paying attention to the work that you do, your institutional anchors will not be able to hold, and your deliberative model will not be as solid and as impactful as it can be. Before I get to the next slide, these are just a few reasons different organizations have different reasons. I would just like to say, oh, please, what is the biggest reason? What is your biggest reason? Your advocacy in where you work. What is the biggest reason and why has your advocacy faded? Or what is the reason why sustainability is becoming a challenge? So you can type the name of your biggest reason in the chat. It can be any of this, or it can be something different. And I would read out responses. For us in Nigeria, I know one of the biggest reasons why advocacy fails is as a result of donor funding, so PC strategy. So now the next slide we are going to look at is the framework. This framework is called the double anchor model. Okay, so Ramadan says funding dependency. Thank you, Ramadan. We say structural resistance. You are all very correct. Okay, funding dependency. Okay, I can see funding dependency is taking a whole lot. This is the common reasons why I think these are one of the common reasons why deliberative model and out solutions, and it requires two things working together, and that is what we call the double anchor model. So I have defined the double anchor model as the framework that holds everything together. This is the central idea of this entire module, and it looks very, very simple. But for advocacy to remain, you need two anchors, not one. Most organizations have one. The one that survived government change, funding cycles, and attention spans need to be built on both. So let us look at the institutional anchor, the one to the left of your screen. The institutional anchor is what connects your model to formal power structures. It connects your model to laws, policies, legal frameworks, government allies. This is how your work becomes embedded in the system that outlasts any individual. In the middle, you have your deliberative model. Whatever your deliberative model is, whether it's a citizens assembly, a participatory group, or whatever activity you have, it's your deliberative model in the middle. And so to the left of the screen where you have the social anchor, the social anchor is what connects your model to the community itself. So the community owns your model. It belongs to the community. Citizens trust your model and they recognize it. You have some level of legitimacy socially in the community, and it is an organization that is based on social mobilization and community trust. Now, this is your scaling big pathway. So this is how your work becomes part of the fabric of a community that refuses to forget. So your deliberative model needs to be embedded in a system that allows any individual, and then it needs to be embedded in the fabric of a community that knows that you exist and the work that you do is recognized and legitimate. Now your deliberative model sits in the center. It is the center, it is the engine of the work that you do. Without both of these anchors, your engine stands. The anchor on the left is what survives political change. That's your institutional anchor. And the anchor on the right is what survives funding change. Together, they make your model irreversible. So when we talked about donor funding coming to an end, it is something that is institutionalized in the community, it stays. And when we talk about government changing one election cycle, putting an end to your advocacy, if it's something, that is where your institutional is all about. So for the next question, because this session is kind of interactive, so please, I would really love you guys to engage and to ask questions at any point. And the question I would like to ask here is rate each anchor 1 to 5 in the chat. In your organization, which is stronger and which is at risk? Is your institutional anchor stronger than your social anchor, or your social anchor is stronger than your institutional anchor? Or you have both anchors which are so solid that irrespective of government change or irrespective of the situation, your anchor has been built into the system that survive both at the community level and institutionally. So you can put your response down and I would read that out loud. which anchor is the strongest, the double anchor model in your institution, in your deliberative model currently as we speak. Looking at this, which do you think is stronger and which do you think is at risk? Okay, so you can also respond. If you don't want to type, you can open your mic and just raise your hand and speak. Okay, if we're not, we can proceed. If there is anyone who needs to speak, just raise your hand up, and I think we're going to be recognized. But for the sake of time, I think we should proceed. Okay, so the next slide is taking you to the tools. All right, thank you very much, Benny. So this is called the ecosystem traffic light. This enables you to see your landscape properly. In advocacy, it is important to understand that not all stakeholders, not all actors are equal. And one of the mistakes that most organizations make is to treat all their stakeholders and actors as equal. They are not equal. And it is one of the most strategic mistakes in advocacy. Now, this ecosystem traffic light is simple, but it gives you a powerful way to see your landscape clearly and to prioritize your energy accordingly. Now, we have 3 boxes. We have your allies, we have your neutrals, and we have the risk. Now, you're gonna, in this traffic light tells you how to categorize your actors. Now, for the allies, these are actors that are already believing in what you do. They understand the work you do. They recognize the work that you do. You have some form of legitimacy with them. They recognize you in the community. The government also recognizes the work that you do. Now, your job with the allies is not to convince them. Your job with your allies is to deepen the relationship that you have with them and to give them some sort of informal role in the model that you have. Now, when they are inside the structure, their departure becomes costly for them and not just for you. So, for instance, where I work, Policy and Legal Advocacy Center, we work very, very closely with our parliament, with the National Assembly here. And the parliament happens to have a National Assembly library. So whenever we have an engagement, because the work we do is related to the National Assembly, whenever we have an engagement, they reach out to us or we reach out to them to say, look, this is what we intend doing. We have the same mission, we aim to achieve the same outcome. You know, can we have some form of collaboration? And so when they come into your space, you're able to work together, and then you're able to convince them, you're able to give structure to the model that you have. They depend on you somewhat for the work that you do, and you also benefit from them regarding what they can add, the value they add to the work that you do. Now, the second box contains your neutral. They're neither on the left, on your side, or not on their side. They are sitting on the fence. Let me put it that way. They are sitting on the fence regarding your model. Now, these people, these actors are not against you. They are simply not convinced the work that you do. The reason and to provide evidence to them saying that, look, your participation costs less. It costs nothing. You just come into the system, you become a part of the system, and this is what we aim to achieve at the end of the day. Make it very easy for them to participate, make it very easy to collaborate, make them very easy to buy into the vision that you have for your model. And then the people in the third category, these actors they do not benefit from anything that you do. They do not believe in your strategy. In fact, they see you as an opponent, more or less than ally. And these are people that would do whatever it takes to make sure that your deliberative model is not sustainable, or is not acceptable, or is not useful, or does not, or finds it difficult, to address the situation that you're looking at. So your strategy with these people is to build coalition with them, to tell them that, look, I am not here to fight you. We are not the enemies, but this is the situation of things. And we feel that coming on board or buying into this model would help. You provide evidence, you provide facts, you give them the numbers, and you tell them what they stand to benefit from being a part of the system and part of the model that you're trying to build. Now, knowing who your actor is the first step. But the second step is to map your journey that your model needs to take them through from dialogue to policy. Now, how strong, the other question I have asked here is, how strong is your current relationship with your key institutional allies? Is it strong? Is it very weak? Is it fair? Or you really don't have any relationship, or you really don't have any ally? Or more importantly, your actors are people, who would rather not participate or be a part of your system. You can also provide your responses. I don't know if anyone would just want to speak on that. How strong is your current relationship with key institutional allies? Okay, Victoria says three. Okay, 3 is fair enough. Yohi says 2, which is quite weak. Ella says 2. Jamie says 5. Oh, that's incredible. I mean, wow, that's nice. Louis says 3. Ella says 2. Audrey says 3. Wow, this is great. Okay, now the numbers that we are giving here matters, because formal authority can actually influence what you do. Your allies can influence what you do. Your neutrals can also influence what you do. And the actors who are not on your side can also influence what you do. So it is important that we look at the situation. We pay very close attention to our actors. But that being said, it is important that your traffic, mapping your actors, the ecosystem traffic light is a living document. So for instance, political cycles will change, and you find out that someone who was your ally today can be your neutral tomorrow or can be your non-supporter, the next day. So it is important that you update, the traffic light ecosystem as often as you can, because advocacy is not something that you do and you stop. It is something that has to go on. You go round and round and round. You have to keep it active. It's something that you have to embed or incorporate into your model. So it is very, very important that you pay attention to who your stakeholders are and who your actors are. Because once the political landscape changes, or once your stakeholder mapping changes, it means that you have to go back to the drawing board and revisit your strategy and review your strategy and begin to tailor your message in a manner that is understandable, and you get a lot of buy-in. Now we have looked at the first tool, which is the stakeholder mapping. The second tool we are going to look at is the advocacy roadmap. Now the advocacy roadmap is just a roadmap that shows your journey from deliberation to policy. All right, thank you. So I have been able to draw up five steps. All right, thank you very much. So there are reports and research has indicated that processes with a formal roadmap are 3.4 times more likely to produce traceable policy change. Now, this is not a coincidence, and it's because the roadmap forces you to answer a question that most organizations never ask. And the question is, which specific stage of the public policy process are we actually to influence? Are we trying to influence, design, implement, or evaluate? Now, your answer changes everything. We are going to look at step 1 and to step 2. The first step is community deliberation. This is where you have your citizens assembly, your participatory diagnosis. This is where you build consensus on your model and the change that you want to see. Now, the most common gap is between steps 1 and 2. Many organizations, they have great assemblies, they have very, very great models, but they are not able to produce anything written, anything signed, or anything dated. Now, without documentation, deliberation is just a conversation. Now, so between step 1 and 2, it is important that your community deliberation, your citizens assembly, or your model is documented, is written, is signed, and it is acceptable between steps 1 and step 2. Now, if we are looking between step 2 and step 3, what happens between step 2 and step 3? So step 2 and step 3, this is your translation gap. Now, this is where the community language rarely enters policy chambers without a deliberate translation into the language of government, efficiency, and institutional legitimacy. Now, this is whatever you have signed, whatever mandate you have written, whatever agreements that you have documented between steps 1 and step 3, this is where it changes. Now, this is where whatever the community has developed and agreed upon moves into the stage of policy. Now, before your agreement moves into the stage of policy, it has to be in the language that the government understands. It has to be something that the government understands, and it has to be something that the government sees as efficient, effective, and lasting, and value added. Now, between steps 3 and step 4, between the policy translation and the institutional engagement, there you have the access gap. Now, having a policy is not the same as having a seat at the table. Now, this step requires the relationship architecture you are building with your traffic light. Now, you have to engage your institutions, you have to engage your allies, you have to engage your actors. And those who are not on board, this is where you have to bring them in. So this is where you activate your coalition to say, yes, the community has agreed on this. This is what we have deliberated on in step 1.
Amah, are you there?
Well, I think give Amma a couple of minutes if you have any time if you have to grab a coffee, water, this is the moment. So yeah, we give her some space to come back and to keep the class.
Oh, hi guys. I'm so sorry about that breaking transmission. Please just forgive me. I don't know, everything just shut down, but I'm not going nowhere anymore, I promise. And so I'm just gonna run through the slides. I'm so sorry about that. So let me quickly just run through the slide of step 4 and step 5, which is the accountability gap. So this accountability gap just says that without monitoring and evaluation, without monitoring what you're doing, it gives the permission to officials to forget the work that you do. So after your institutional engagement, you go to step 5, which is tracking accountability. You monitor your progress, community feedback loops, you have annual reviews, hold public accountability events. And so these are just the steps, 5 steps that will take you from deliberations to policy. However, now, so there are some organizations who often get stuck between step 1 and step 2. Sometimes they get stuck between step 2 and step 3. But from experiences, it has been observed that most organizations find it very difficult to transform their agreement or their documentation into policy translation. This is usually the most difficult part for civil society organizations, the ability for them to transform their written mandates into policy is usually the most difficult part of it. There is a question down there which says, what steps does your organization struggle with the most? Is it step 1? I don't believe it's step 1, but is it step 1? Is it step 2? Is it step 3? Is it step 4? Or is it step 5? You can provide your responses in the chat. Now, if you look below the screen, I have scaling deep, which is community legitimacy, and scaling up on your right-hand side. So step 1 and step 2, if you recall on the double anchor model, step 1 and step 2 is where you build your legitimacy in the community. And then step 4 and step 5 is your institutional policy impact. This is where your institutional anchor lies. So from deliberation to policy, this step is anchored on the double anchor tool that we looked at initially. And so it is very, very important that these steps are incorporated in your deliberation and in your organization if you want to ensure that you move from just conversation to being at the table where your policy is institutionalized and you're able to track and monitor your policy. So this is that for the deliberative model. It is anchored on the first tool, which we looked at. And so we'll go through. Oh, sorry, let me look at the chat. Okay, Louis says that the organization struggles with steps 2 to step 4. So that is from agreement to policy to institutional engagement. Amah says they struggle with step 5. Amah, we're going to look at how to address that and some of the solutions that I'll be providing. What else? Yeah. Yes, step 2 is quite common, Louis. They're able to deliberate, but they're not able to document anything. Step 3 is where the policy language is usually difficult. Step 4 is usually common. Access is usually bottleneck. Access to the institution, access to the gatekeepers, access to officials of the government is usually a challenge. But I would just take you through. Alejandro says step 4, institutional engagement. I quite agree with you, Alejandro, because we have some organizations back here in Nigeria who they try to work with the National Assembly and they say, oh, the National Assembly is the most difficult and most complex people to engage. No matter how we try to convince them that it has to be, what do you have to bring? What do you want them to hear? What do you have to say? Because most times they are not resistant, not because they don't want to listen to you, but they are looking at, oh, what is the substance of your engagement? How does it add value to the work that we are going to do? How does it add value to citizens? And how does it add value to your whole deliberative model? So it is quite understandable. Step 4, Leo says step 4 is quite difficult. Institutional engagement, I quite agree with you. But in the next slide, we're going to see how we can address this. So now that we know where this journey is headed to, the next 2 tools I'm going to talk to you about is going to give you the language and the protection that you need to travel safely from one step to the next step. So the next slide talks about speaking the right language. That the next tool. Yeah. So the next tool is called your strategic narrative. How are you able to move from where you are stuck currently to the next step in your deliberative model? Now, the first step you have to do is to speak the language that your actors understand. Now, here is a hard truth about advocacy. It is not enough to be right. You must be understood, and you must be understood in the language that your audience already speaks. Now, this speaking the language is like a win-win messaging framework. Now, it gives you 4 translations of the same core message, calibrated for 4 different audiences. Now, let us look at your audience. If your audience is the government, you have to speak a language of efficiency and you have to speak a language of legitimacy. They do not want to implement policies that the community will resist, right? So you have to position your deliberation as a risk reduction mechanism and not a right that they can claim. So whatever it is you're going to speak to the government about, you have to let them know that, look, whatever it is you have to do, the community is not going to resist. So for instance, I put that in quote, which says, you have to be direct and you have to be honest. For example, our assemblies reduce implementation risk, including our recommendation, it costs less than you ignoring them. So you're telling the government, you're telling the officials that, look, this is what we have to do, and this is how we want to go about it. bringing you on board, it costs less. But you ignoring the situation or ignoring the crisis isn't going to help. This is how we can draw a roadmap to address the situation. Now, the next language for your donors, for your funders or donors, we call them donors here in Nigeria, is your language of evidence and scalability. Now, funders, they care about your systematic impact and value for money. So you have to show them that your model produces evidence that can be replicated, and it shows that it brings about change and it's not just an activity. Now you have to speak the language of your citizens, which is the language of rights, trusting, and belonging. Now your voice built this. So here is what you have decided. This is who have heard, and this is what is going to change. Citizens, they care about trust, they care about dignity, and they care about efficacy. Now, if you're going to close this loop visibly, you have to show them that their participation matters and it is specific and it is not just vague. And then your last strategic narrative, which is going to be with the media, is going to be about the language of impact and accountability. Now you have to show them evidence. For the media, they need a story that has the proof. You have to give them a concrete decision. You have to give them specific numbers of participants, and you have to give them the information that they would need to drive your deliberative model or your activity, to citizens with information that is right and acceptable by citizens. Now, the next tool we are going to look at is protecting your process. Now, it's enough for you to have it out there. It's enough for you to understand. It's enough for you to engage. It's enough for you to have buy-in. But the next thing you're going to look at is how do you protect your process? How do you protect your model? Now, this is the most uncomfortable part. Now, there are 3 co-optation risks. These are not hypothetical. They occur, they exist. You have political co-optation. This is where officials of the government, they are claiming ownership of the community outcomes before elections. Now, politicians are very, very strategic. Anything that will give them a good name, anything that will make them look nice, they are ready to anchor onto that. And most times in Nigeria, the experience we have is when it's time for an election cycle, you see them reaching out, oh, this initiative you're carrying out in the community, it looks interesting, can I buy in? They come very, very innocent, looking as if they are interested in what you're doing. But the whole idea behind them reaching out or engaging to you is because they're trying to use your platform for political gains. Now, electoral instrumentation. Now, where assemblies are used as campaign platforms, we have instances where you invite lawmakers or you invite government officials, to your program, just to create that balance, to bring citizens together with public officials to have deliberations. And you find out that the politician or the government official turns your program into a campaign platform to capture that program. And so they try to reshape the processes, if they try to reshape your deliberative model just for their own interest. And now these are not these protections, they are not bureaucratic, they are strategic shields. So now in order for you to protect your process, what are the things that you need to do? Now you have to ensure that you document your mandate. There are signed agreements authored by participants. Ownership cannot be renarrated. What you have to do secondly is to have a non-partisan process charter. You also need independent monitoring, and then whatever it is that you do, it is important that you tell your story yourself. Otherwise, other people who are not on the same page with you will capture your model and restructure it in such a way that fits their own motive and not for the motive of building society or pushing citizens' interests. Now, these are all external influences that can affect your processes. So it is very, very important that as you embark on your deliberative model, you pay attention to these situations. It is good you have politicians on your side, but it is also good to understand the intentions of the politicians and the government officials when it comes to your deliberative model. So it's to always publish whatever it is you do, you publish it, social media, your website, you create awareness on it so that you know that it belongs to you, it belongs to the community, and it cannot be taken over or it cannot be inherited, by state actors. Now, the next tool we are going to look at is building the base. Now, so building the base, citizens' trust, what I would say to this slide is that citizens' trust is your most durable political asset. It cannot be bought, it cannot be transferred, and it cannot be co-opted as long as you have built it genuinely. So these are the three-track civic capacity model. It is designed to ensure that your community base is not just a constituency, but there are people that are trained, organized, they are politically literate enough to ensure that when they are advocating with you. Now, I will just introduce these three tracks and just emphasize their political purpose. So track one is your foundational track. Now, it is about ensuring that every participant understands their rights, they understand the deliberative process, and they understand how to read government activities and initiatives. Now, here it is how to speak, listen, and deliberate effective. You have to have that foundation. Now, your second track has to do with your beneficiaries, your target audience. So this track is about ensuring that the most excluded voices, they have a pathway and they have specifics into the advocacy. They are not just representations for you in terms of numbers, but they are very, very important people in the decision-making process. Now, your track three are your leaders. So the leaders in your organizations. It's about building the next generation of your model. Who will carry this forward when you are not there? So track three talks about your foundations, which is your citizens. Track two is for your beneficiaries, and track three talks about your leaders or assembly delegates, those who are going to translate your mandate into policy, those who will be engaging the government, those who will be monitoring the government, those who will be building coalition, as well as your media strategy. If you are not there, who would carry your work forward? So this is all about building the base. Community capacity, like I said on the slide, it is not an add-on. It is the infrastructure that makes advocacy political irreversible. So having these three tracks at your base, building on these three tracks, would help sustain your advocacy in the long run. Now, the last tool we're going to look is the monitoring and evaluation, tracking every commitment. Now, if you look at the last steps, the steps from deliberation to policy, most responses in the chat talked about monitoring and evaluation as well as accountability. Now, this track tells you that every step needs to be, every commitment, needs to be tracked. Your recommendations must be traceable, and there has to be a follow through from the measure of advocacy to ensure that it remains. Now, the 5-step commitment life cycle, it looks very, very simple, but most organizations, they stop at step 2 and it ends there, which is submission. They document, they submit, and then they wait. However, waiting is not a strategy. Now, step 3 requires that you assign a named person to every decision. Step 4 ensures that you report everything that happens and provide updates on every situation that goes on. And then step 5 is where you escalate. Now, this is what gives your entire model the teeth, because without public accountability, there is usually no institutional capacity in that field. So you can have the best deliberation, you can have the strongest mandate, you can have the most aligned coalition and the most eloquent narrative. But if there is no system that follows through your recommendation, from advocacy, from public decision, your advocacy is going to disappear. Now, this is the difference between advocacy that generates evidence of impact and advocacy that generates activity reports. Now, without escalation, without step 5, your system has no teeth. Without reporting, your community is excluded from the outcome that has been produced. Without tracking, it means you are not following up on anything. Without submission, it means there is nothing formally on record. And without documentation, it means everything about your deliberative model is deniable. So it is important that every commitment you get involved in, you track it, you submit it, you report it, and then you escalate it. So this is the places where this helps, in ensuring that your deliberative model is sustained. I don't know if there are any questions. I've been talking too much. Is there any questions, please? Any clarification before we move? Any addition? Does anybody need to add anything? Ramadan, do you want to add anything? Because I see you have been smiling. Do you have anything to say? Leo, Alejandro, if there is anything, please just let me know. If you need clarifications, Victoria. Okay, Louis says everything is clear. Thank you very, very much for your attention. All right, thank you so much, Alejandro. All right, so now we are going to look at the next slide. I have taken the time out to look at. Okay, so Moshood post something in the group. He says, in the real sense of the word deliberation, most organizations don't deliberate. Rather, they dialogue or discuss or have conversation. Why not call step 1 community do dialogue? Okay, that's fine. I believe that is from the steps from deliberation to policy. All right, moving forward, I have been able to look at these are additional tools. So I will just briefly flag the 6 tools that support advocacy, that support the advocacy architecture that you have built. They are free, they are all low cost, and they are specifically designed to work within Global South. So we have Cómo Toolbox. So it is an offline tool that you use for data collection. We have Signal and Redefile is for encrypted coordination. We have Notion or Obsidian. You can use that for institutional memory and knowledge management. You have Canva and MetaSuite, which is very, very popular for content creation and social distribution. So you have Ushahidi. Ushahidi is for community reporting accountability mapping. And then you have global giving and chalk. So this is just for fundraising. Now, these tools, they are not replacement for the advocacy work that you do, but you can see them as operational infrastructure that makes your architecture function at a scale and across distance. So I hope that going forward in the work that you do, you find these tools very, very resourceful. In case you have issues for content creation, social distribution, you have Canva and MetaSuite. Data collection for community testimonies. You can use Cómo Toolbox and every other tool that is here tailored to the work that you do. And so the next slide we are going to look at is slide 14 and slide 16. All right, so I'm going to read out 4 questions. These are not rhetorical questions. These are questions that you're expected to sit with. I do not want you to answer them quickly, but I just want you to have something to carry with you. And so the first question is, what drew you to this course? And does the origin still anchor you today? Now, this question, there are some deliberative models that started with a specific mission and a specific vision. They had goals, they had objectives. But as the cycle changes, as the government changes, as the electoral cycle changes, as funders stopped coming, as people stopped relating with their deliberative model, they had to change course. So for instance, if they started with something that had to do with health reforms, they pushed it. But because of these changes in cycle, they are no longer into health. They have not decided to focus on education. So you have to sit with yourself and ask the question, why did I begin this model in the first place? What was the reason? What was the goal? What was the motive? What changes did I hope to see? What problem did I hope to solve? The next question we are going to look at is who will carry this work forward and how are you actively preparing them? If today you leave your organization or you move on to something better, all your deliberative model that you have started from scratch, that you have been passionate about, that you have loved, that you have believed in, if something happens today and say, okay, I need to hand over, how are you actually preparing people to carry your advocacy, to champion your model forward? Now, the next question is what structures have you built that don't depend on your personal presence? If you are not there, what happens? It is something that we should sit and we should think about. If I am not there, what happens? Is it going to be sustained? Is it going to be the end of my deliberative model? Is this going to be the end of my advocacy? Is this going to be the end of what I have built for over 10, 15 years? This is a question that we need to sit with ourselves and we need to understand. Now, the last question is when the noise fades, what do you want to remain? Now, when everything about your advocacy, you've done everything, you have achieved everything, what next? What do you want to see? What legacy do you hope to build? And what impact do you want to make in the society? So these are the 4 questions that I would encourage each and every one of us to sit with and to ask ourselves, our advocacy strategy, what we so love, and the community that we want to see change and the impact we are bringing to the society. If all of this happened, if I left today, if the structures have built depends on one person, or if the noise fades, what is left of our advocacy and the message that we have worked so hard to build? The next slide says, it's just a quote. It's just a quote that says, every power map gets obsolete, every narrative goes stale, every window of opportunity closes. The organizations that endure are not the ones who got the strategy right once. They are the ones who built the capacity to renew it continuously. So advocacy is trying to tell you, this model is trying to tell you that advocacy is not a one-off thing. It is something that you have to do continuously in spite of government change, in spite of donor funding, in spite of support. You have to continue reinventing. Yeah, that's the word, to reinvent yourself, reinvent your advocacy, reinvent your messaging without necessarily losing the substance of what you hope to see and what you hope to get. So this model asks 2 questions. Who in your advocacy, in your ecosystem is waiting to be activated, and what would make them move? If your lead government champion left tomorrow, or if your donor left tomorrow, what would survive? Advocacy that stays is advocacy that communities can own, communities understand, and communities can repeat with or without the supporting organization. So I think with this final provocation, I have come to the end of my presentation, and I hope I have been able to impact, and make it as important as it is. So yeah, so the last slide, that is what it is all about. It says advocacy that stays is not built on one person's passion. It is woven into the fabric of a community that refuses to forget. Thank you so much, guys. I am here for questions, contributions, anything. Please just feel free. I hope within the amount of time I have been able to do justice, and, just provide you with the basis of what you need to sustain your advocacy and your deliberation from floor to policy and then to citizens engagement and citizens recognition. So thank you all for your participation, and I don't know, Melissa, Benny. I think you can take it up from here.
We want to invite you to make a little conversation about what you learned about this presentation, the main takeaways, eh, and also share some experience regarding this that you want to share with the rest of the participants. So if you want to open your mics and share your thoughts.
Hello, hello.
Yeah, yeah, Mashud, are you talking or Pecos?
No, somebody.
I'd like to.
Let
Sorry,
the person speak first. Let the person speak first, please. There's
okay,
somebody.
perfect. Go ahead, Mashud, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much. If the person is not taking the chance, thanks for the wonderful presentation by Abba. Or what's her name? On advocacy, that's what I want to speak on. Basically, to me, advocacy is just a game of number, a game of power, and a game of intrigue stroke wit. Whatever you're advocating for, somebody somewhere is advocating against. It's either you are advocating for change or you are advocating for a status quo. You want that thing to continue. Something is very good and you want it to continue. Therefore, you have to advocate. Because it is good, it is bad to some people. So those people will like to advocate against. Then it becomes a game of number. If you now have people against more than you, so that is why the word allies is very, very important. So you need to win more people to your side so that you get you outnumber those who are against. That is a power game too. Even if you have the number, if you don't have power to push anything, I give a case in Nigeria. A lot of people would like to have a change of government. That is, to me, that's what I believe. But we have some people who are actually supporting the government, and because they have the power backing them, those who are against the government cannot make their way because people that are for government have the power backing them, and it's a game of intrigue. That's when you have propaganda coming in, you have misinformation coming in, you have disinformation also coming in, and fake news as well. So we have to deal with this phenomena if we want to make a headway in our advocacy program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Moshood. Quite agree with you. It may sound very simple. Advocacy may sound to advocate may sound very, very simple, but it's one of the most technical and most complex strategy, that any civil society organization can embark on. A lot of people will be on your side and a lot of people would not be on your side. But if you go back to the tools, the tools for advocacy that I talked about, that most of those tools, addresses most of the concerns that you have raised. For instance, understanding who your allies are, it's very, very important. In terms of fake news, that is why you have to own your process. You have to make sure that your processes or your model is not hijacked or co-opted. And then your best strategy is to use the media. Give them the information that you want to put out there to ensure that your information is not misinterpreted. It is your source. You own it. The community owns your model. So it is very, very important that we take this into consideration. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Moshood, for your contributions. Very, very insightful. Okay, so Purpose is asking a question. He says, I just want to know if the presenter has implemented this, and if yes, what is her experience within the community? Thank you so much, Picos, for your question. So for the past 10 years, I have been working with Policy and Legal Advocacy Center FLAC, and most of the work that we have done is all about translating deliberations to policy. We work very, very closely with the National Assembly, and to tell you the truth, the parliament, the politicians, the government institutions, they are one of the most complicated and most complex set of people to deal with. So for instance, I recall 4 years ago, we were of the opinion, or we had the impression that, oh, civil society engagement with the National Assembly is here to stay. They recognize the work that we do. They understand the changes that civil society organizations bring to the community. In fact, they call civil society organizations in Nigeria the fourth arm of government. Now, at the beginning of the National Assembly, when they were inaugurated and session had started, this is one example I'm giving to you. The bill that was introduced to the National Assembly was a bill to regulate the activities of NGOs and civil society organizations in Nigeria. They proposed a legislation whereby the government will have powers over the activities of civil society organizations. Now, we as PLAC, we sit down and say, but we thought the National Assembly were our allies. We thought these people were our friends. Why would they want to regulate us? What do we do? How do we go about this? And so with that information, we put it out there online. We did an analysis of the bill. We built strategies with other civil society organizations. There was protest for 3 days, keeping against the bill. In fact, they had a public hearing, and civil society organizations were represented in their numbers. And we told the parliament, we said, look, this bill is dead on arrival. This bill would not see the light of day. Civil society organizations are highly regulated. We cannot, the work that we do, we cannot give it to the government because they do not understand the way that we work. And so we put this advocacy before them. We fought tooth and nail. And I think that was, we were able to defeat the bill. The bill couldn't go forward in the legislative process. This is just one of the example that we have had to tell you that, look, your allies today can also be the people who would not be on your side tomorrow. What you have to do is to ensure that you take ownership of the process. You understand the space that you work in. And so it is really, 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 really important. We own whatever we do in my organization based on my experience. We take ownership. We put a name to it. And because of the kind of information we put out there, civil society organizations, the National Assembly has seen, my organization has seen PLAC as a worthy partner because they know that we put out the facts and figures. We don't go with what is sensational. When it comes to policies, we speak to them. We tell them this is what citizens want to see. We are not here to fight you. We only want to strengthen the work that you do. This is how you can benefit from the work that you do. So whatever decision you make is up to you. But if you're a parliament that wants to see lasting impact on the lives of citizens and want to strengthen governance system in Nigeria, this is the right way to go. And I think to some extent, we have been able to make positive impact. We have been able to reach out to them, to be on our side, to be on the side of citizens, and to understand the work that we do. So I hope that, I hope that answers your question. Yeah. also. And again, sometimes we've had experiences where, it's civil society against civil society organizations. Someone wants your deliberative model. Your deliberative model looks interesting. Oh, we want it. We want to be the one to do it. We've also had those kind of challenges, but we'll also ensure, make them understand that, look, you are a part of our community. We are not in competition. We are about driving change, because the truth of the matter is the government pays attention to the work that you do. You may think they are not seeing you or they don't know what you're doing, but trust me, someone is paying attention. And so they are waiting to see, who will be the last man standing really at the end of the day. They are paying attention. Some are paying attention to see, oh, which one do I use for my political platform? Some institutions are paying attention based on the credibility of your model, and as well as something that aligns with the agenda of the government. So they reach out to you sincerely, hoping that the partnership will be able to bring forth whatever changes you really want to see. And there are some of them who really couldn't be bothered about the work that you do. You can't blame them. You can't have it in 100%. But the most important question is, this is the work I am doing. It is legitimate. It is here to stay. With or without Iember Amah, the organization goes forward, the deliberation model lasts, or with or without the funding of DemoReset, I have been able to build a model that is sustainable through years and through time.
Thank you so much, Amah.
Thank you, Melissa.
Jamie, go ahead. If you want to turn on your camera, please. Also.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Amah, for that wonderful presentation. First, one of the major things that remained with me through your session was when you spoke about tracking every commitment. For the model we use, in our network, in our movement, advocacy by Street Project Foundation here in Nigeria, is quite youth driven, right? And most of our capacity building for our young people who run these different movements is done in a camp for 4 to 6 weeks. And if you think about 4 to 6 weeks, there's only so much that we can do in terms of keeping them grounded, and we try to do continuous capacity building for them, just to make sure that we are always updated, and we are able to up their skills in handling tasks, and all of that. So tracking commitments is definitely one of the major challenges that we face. Tracking commitments, because usually they have engagements, they organize and they have conversations with policymakers, and it's always hard to, well, especially from in Nigeria, it's hard for them to always commit, but even harder for the young people to just sign. It's always a verbal agreement that we are not able to collect at the end of the day. So I think just reinforcing this with your session is something to think about. And also, now I am thinking of new ways that can, really employ to make sure that we can track commitment effectively. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Jamie. I quite agree with you. It is very, very important. If you can just go back to your system, go back to the drawing board and look at the most appropriate strategy that you can use in tracking your activity. There are different ways of doing this. So if you want to develop like an evaluation form, something that you send out to people periodically to say, look, this is what we discussed, how far have you gone about it? You send reminder emails, just sit and you think through the most appropriate channel, because it's important you track these things, because if you're not able to track whatever recommendation or whatever decision is done, then what are you following up on? That is the question that you need to ask yourself. So before you get into that space, you say, what am I following up on? What exactly am I following up on? You have to be specific and you have to be direct as well. Thank you very much. And I see that Lucia dropped a message. She says, she says, is it here? I don't know, but says thank you very much for this session. Thank you so much, Lucia. Experienced a major interruption in its work for about 4 years due to funding constraints, and is now in the process of rebuilding. One of our key challenges is how to reconnect with the communities we previously worked with and how to rebuild trust and long-term engagement. This discussion is very relevant to us as we are trying to move towards more sustainable and resilient advocacy models. I would really appreciate your advice on how organizations can recover from funding shocks and rebuild advocacy in a way that is consistent and sustainable over time. Thank you very much. Advice on how organizations can recover, trust me, right? Most organizations don't recover from funding shocks. But what I will advise you to do, Lucia, is to go back and look at your model, because you have mentioned this is about 4 years now. A lot of things would have changed. A lot of people would have actually moved on, from what you currently had 4 years ago. So you go back to the drawing board and you say, okay, this is 4 years later. What do I want to see? What do I want to achieve? I know there's some organizations, there should be some organizations within ABECA that also are into that space. You can think of collaboration. So the experiences that you have learned from previously is something that you can bring to fore. So you can look at collaborations, you can look at partnership, and then because you have done something wonderful, I don't think it's something you should let your work slide. People are looking for information, people are looking for resources. So I would encourage you, whatever you have done before, you put it out there. It can be a source of information to someone. It can be a source of collaboration for someone. So the work that you have done for the past 4 years, before the funding constraints, you can look at how you can put that together and put that information out there. Draw people to the work that you do. Draw people's attention to the work that you do. You have worked so hard at the work that you do. I don't think it's wise for you to just keep that information out there. You put it out there, and trust me, the right organization, the right partner, the right funder, the right donor, would pick up, on what you have done, on the work that you have done. And then if you want to re-strategize, that's okay. If there are other area of interest, that you think you can take on, you start building that advocacy message. You can always build up from where you started from. Collaborations, reinventing the work that you have done, putting your information out there, using your social media handles to promote the work that you have done. It is helpful. Trust me, there is no advocacy. Advocacy is not limited to time. Advocacy doesn't just end because the donor has left. Advocacy is continuing. So irrespective of funding, in your own
Amma, are you there? I don't know if she's frozen again. I would like to say also to Lucia, thank you so much for that comment in the chat. In the last open session, Vanessa Gonzalez gave us also some recommendation about how to design deliberative models that could be attractive uh, to rebuild the trust with the community. We encourage you to explore a little bit more about this conversation that is available in YouTube. I think we can make sure that you can also have this conversation about how to design deliberative process, because this question it's very likely to the topic that Vanessa shared with us. That is necessary to be creative, to learn and to read the context very well, to offer to the community spaces where we can gather and we can share our fears or hopes and all the things that could create community with them, of course. So this lection of Vanessa is very helpful for this question to Lucia, if you are willing to explore a little bit more about the design of these spaces. I don't know, Raman, if you want to add something else, go ahead.
Hello, Melissa. Hello, everyone. Dama, thanks a lot. Really, all what you said were very important, very straightforward suggestions, recommendations. It was really great to hear experiences from Nigeria. I just wanted to share a few experiences from our side of the world, from Europe, Western Balkans, specifically from Kosovo. I liked initially your question very much, and I intentionally didn't respond on that because in my perception, when we speak about advocacy, I would say that we speak about our lifestyles. I link much of the things that we do in our everyday lives. I connect somehow to advocacy, even when we look for school, we advocate to have better education, to have better schools, to have better children for ourselves, for our children. We advocate to have better jobs. We advocate to have grants. So somehow it's lifestyle. Every day we are dealing in one or another segment of that. What is important is what is the aim of that advocacy action that we are dealing with. Is it personal? Is it in the benefit of our family, or is it in the benefit of our community that we live in? So I would, in that manner, divide what is the advocacy in the interest of the community. And what I truly believe here is that being successful in advocacy is very highly related to the level of being individually active citizen. Because if you are not in principle active citizen, it's less possible that you will have successes in your advocacy campaigns. What I want to say, if our organizations conduct any kind of advocacy campaign just for the sake of the grant that we have received from some donor, it is not good example for others. But when we do advocacy campaigns, advocacy actions for our beliefs, our what we trust that is better for our society, then the change and the impact of that change really would matter much more. I have worked in different perspectives here in Kosovo in different advocacy campaigns, and I just would like to share some examples what we did here, in particular actions that we had. For example, we had a long period of exploitation of a riverbed here in Kosovo, which somehow might sound similar to the issues that you are facing there with mining and illegal stuff here. We were having illegal exploitation of the riverbed, which was causing a lot of trouble and still causes a lot of trouble to the property owners in that field. So it was not enough just to say that, hey guys, this is wrong. It was not enough to say, hey, this director or this ministry is responsible for that, or to say that this is corrupted or this another one is corrupted. What you have to convince the public opinion about the damage that it is caused there. Uh, when you try to do something, you have to convince people, and the first element to convince public opinion is to have clear picture, is to show the clear picture of the damage that particular situation is causing to everyone. In that back in that years when we did, we have here international military presence here. We still don't have our helicopters of our armed forces, and we get in touch with NATO forces here, and they went simply with their helicopters over the area, and they had pictures, real pictures from the field to show the impact of that damage. And it played a very important uh, it was very important element to inform citizens who is doing, what is causing, and what are the challenges that people are facing with that. And that triggered the public opinion on that, and immediately institutions started to deal with that more seriously. Municipalities were involved, central level institutions were involved, and after maybe 10 years, we have people now arrested, companies, equipment confiscated there because of exploitation. So uh, it took maybe more than 10 years, but there were initial steps of this building public opinion about the issue there, and then fruits of that, of course, will take a longer period. In your case, specifically with very high economic interest, of course, it's very difficult in a short-term period to come to the results, but it really needs it requires a long-term engagement. A more softer topic in one of the examples in which I was part of was related with increasing transparency in the use of property, of municipal property. What we did, it was very hard from the perspective of NGO or even of an active citizen to go all through this huge documentation, bureaucratic procedures, and all of that. What we did, we established some forum of transparency on that. It was the example that we utilized before with transparency forums in municipalities, when we involved other civil society organizations, we involved journalists, we involved business people, and then together identified particular cases in which we asked local authorities to publish their data about that. And it worked because we involved high-profile people from our community in that. And this somehow convinced municipality to take more seriously what we were advocating for that. So it is very important to provide the clear answer to who is advocating and for what is advocating. So it's different when 5 teenagers advocate for something, is different when 5 professors are advocating something for something. It's very important to build up that trust. And for our organizations, it's very important our organizations to have that required level of public recognition of our organization in the society. So when we say something, to be sure that that will be taken seriously from the institutions. So just shortly and briefly. Thanks.
Thank you for those examples, Ramon. Go ahead, Luis.
First of all, thank you, Amma, for your presentation. I love all the things you shared to us. And you remind me about one of the process we promote here in Mexico. I am from a state called Querétaro. It's a small state 2 hours north from Mexico City. And in 2021, Querétaro had one of the worst participation laws in Mexico. That means the people, we didn't have like these processes to participate with governments. And with a lot of organizations, we start this deliberative space. And we, in Política Colectiva, what we did was to analyze all the laws, the participation laws in Mexico. And we tried to design one of the one law for Querétaro, and then we promote it with the Congress in the state. And after 3 years of pushing and negotiating and talking about this, we achieved and the Congress approved this law. So when we look back and ask what was the best thing about this process, it is not just the law. It is that we create a little community of organizations that now are using this law to promote another spaces and another laws. So I think one of the best things about advocacy is not just the political achievement, it is the cultural achievement. I mean, I think one of the most important political achievements are or have this cultural component. So I think with your last questions, you point that very, very clearly. And well, thank you very much for your presentation. And with all your concepts and with all the presentation, and now I have like I have more tools to create best deliberative process and thinking how can we get done this advocacy better. I'm sorry, I'm not very good at English. I'm feeling now like Sofia Vergara in Modern Family. I'm much more intelligent in Spanish, but thank you very much for the space.
Go ahead, Alma, if you want to close the session.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. It's been an amazing time. I have learned so much from you guys as well. Thank you for your contributions. Very quite insightful. I'm learning so much about your deliberative model and as well as the space that you work as well. I'm happy that my presentation, evoked a lot of messaging, and I hope that you continue to celebrate your wins. The job that you do, you guys are doing fantastic. The challenges you face, it's necessary to have those challenges, but they're quite important because it pushes the work that you do also, forward. So continue to do the best that you do in your space. We are rooting for you. I am supporting you. And it's been a great and rewarding experience. So thank you guys very much for being part of the session. And I look forward to hearing from you, Ramadan. So thank you so much. Thank you, Benny, for helping me with the slides as well. Thank you, Melissa, Sylvia. I'm grateful. Thank you, Andrea. My team, Andre, Audrey, Rogers. Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us today. We hope you can join us for the last open session that will be the 2nd of June. So see you then. Thank you so much again for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.